Hello everyone, welcome back to Tomcat Stitchery. I'm Whitney and we're talking about patterns today. We're going to be talking about the Precious Fabric Challenge, and I'm obviously participating as Tomcat Stitchery is hosting it, but I'm going to be talking about trying to choose a pattern in today's video, and I would love any input that you guys have. Now, my YouTube membership will be voting on the final pattern that I'll be using, but again, love to have your input in as we go, just to maybe give me some ideas that I hadn't had before. But before we get into that, today is Friday, which means we have a Future Friday pattern. So today's Love Notions Future Friday pattern is the duet trousers. I have made this before. You can use wovens or knits, just a really standard little trouser pattern. It's either a pull-on pant or you can use a invisible zipper on the side. It is $6 today only, and you can use the code Gidget10 for an additional 10% off your sale price. Makes it just a really good staple as you're going into fall for, a pair of simple pants, especially if you're someone that has not made a lot of pants. So definitely a good one to grab if you're interested. Okay, let's talk about Precious Fabric Challenge and what I am using. I was here on Tuesday and we talked about my fabric, which I've got right here with me. It is this beautiful wool. Give you a reminder of what it looks like in this very Bowden-esque wool that is blue with the orange geometric shape on one side, and then it is the orange. I say orange. It's my warm red orange that I love. It's the opposite on the other side of the fabric. So again, wool, it was expensive. I just bought this in May. I have 3 yards of it. But I want to talk a little bit about my process on how I decided when I was purchasing it, kind of what I had in mind, and kind of how I go through that process and picking what I'm going to make with the fabrics that I purchase. I am one that typically does not, when I go fabric shopping, I may have a list of things that I need, like, oh, I need a new white button-up shirt in my wardrobe, which I actually do need. But I'll have a list maybe of things like that, or I'm looking for Ponte in a couple of colors because, I've got a couple of ideas for some Ponte garments. I will go fabric shopping kind of with those in mind. But a lot of times when I'm fabric shopping, especially in a store, I really like to see what is offered and be inspired by fabrics that are around me. I love that. I love being able to touch and feel things. And when I do that, I have a couple of rules. Number one, I only shop for my color card. So I had my colors done by the Color Guru. I've got 35 colors on that card. I also have a code, Tomcat Color, if you're interested in also having your colors done professionally. But even if you aren't working from a professional, these are your colors type of card, I highly recommend you picking a color palette of some sort. It makes shopping so much easier if you have, here are the colors I'm looking for. So even though there's, 16 colors of this Ponte, really only these 3 are in my color palette. So now I'm just picking between 3 instead of between 16. It just makes everything so much easier, especially, our brains are wired to pick color out. So if I'm looking at a whole bunch of shirtings, it's very easy for me to say, nope, 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 nope. Oh yeah, that one's interesting. A little less overwhelming for the brain, and definitely also helps with shopping. I'm not overbuying. I'm not buying things just because they're on sale. However, if I've got something that's in my color palette that's on sale, that's a great purchase because I know that's going to go with things in my wardrobe. Even if it sits in my stash for a little bit, I know that that will be used and it will go with other stuff that is already in my closet. So just a couple of rules of thumb. But I often go fabric shopping not with projects in mind, and that was the case with this fabric. Saw the fabric, absolutely loved it. Now, with most things, I will, oh my gosh, that fabric, that cotton lawn is gorgeous. I know in my head this is probably going to be a shirt of some sort or possibly a dress. That is kind of my go-tos with that type of fabric. And I, in my head, know this is typically what I will make out of a rayon challis or out of a cotton lawn or out of a wool. When I saw this particular fabric though, the reason it caught my eye was because it did feel very Bowden to me. I have very much a Bowden aesthetic. Why? They're classic lines, which I really love. That's just what I'm drawn to, but they also do a lot of color. And that is absolutely what I'm also drawn to. You guys know I love my color. I don't want things, I've got neutrals in my closet, obviously. That kind of is the glue that holds everything together. But if I have the opportunity to wear a bright pair of orange pants, I'm gonna wear a bright pair of orange pants. or, something that's a really fun print, I'm absolutely going to be drawn to that. And that is my preference in what I'm going to wear. So when I saw this particular fabric, it reminded me of Bowden, and I was like, okay, I want something Bowden inspired. What is this going to be? This did help me determine how much fabric I was going to buy as well. In my brain, I could see a hip length, so cropped, I say cropped, but like a high hip length jacket, and something that I would wear in the fall and in the spring. That is kind of what I had in mind. So when I first took it to the cutting counter, I was only going to get 2 yards. That's enough to do a swingy high hip jacket, probably 1.5 yards, I'm short. But then when she unrolled it more and I saw that it was the reverse on the other side, I was like, oh, get me 3. Now, am I going to have enough to do 2 garments out of this? I don't know. The priority is a cropped jacket. We'll see if I have enough for something else as well. It just kind of depends. I mean, this is a large scale print that I'm going to have to match across seams. So we'll kind of see. We'll kind of see where this all goes. But I knew that is kind of what I wanted to do with it. So that is why I went ahead and bought 3. Normally I would have bought a little bit less because this was pricey. But I'm glad I did, because this gives me some options. And now I am not completely beholden to what I first saw in my head when I purchased it. Although I'm not straying very much. But no, if you in your head thought, oh, this fabric is going to make a beautiful dress, and later on you decide, I really don't wear dresses that much. Why did I, buy that for a dress? It doesn't have to be a dress. It could be a blouse. It could be a whole bunch of other things. So just keep that in mind. You're not locking yourself into a fabric being a particular garment or a particular style just because that was what you had in mind when you purchased it. It can change. That is not the case with this, but that has definitely happened to me in the past. So that is what I kind of went into that knowing. Now, I did not have a pattern picked out. In fact, I didn't even have a complete silhouette lined out yet in my brain when I purchased this fabric. So this is now where the process goes of me heading over to the internet and hitting up some shops that, some shops that I actually shop from that I can afford. As well as dreaming big and looking at like Net-a-Porter, where there's like, Balenciaga and brands that I cannot afford a $3,000 coat, but I can look at them and take inspiration from them. This is also a little different because sometimes I go onto those sites and I am looking to completely recreate a look. So I'm looking for fabric that looks similar and everything. With this particular project, I was just looking for silhouettes that I thought would work well for this fabric. So I pulled a few, barn coat style. I'm going to show you some pictures that I pulled off the internet. I pulled, like the chore jackets that are very popular. Now, I do know I don't want a ton of pockets. Whatever I decide to do with this, I don't want a ton of details because this is very busy fabric. So I do want to keep those streamlined. But I do love the shape of like a barn jacket or a chore jacket. I love it with the collar. I think that would be really, really cool. I was also very drawn to bomber style jackets. I think that those are still it's a classic silhouette and something that I could definitely see in my wardrobe. Also, the cropped trench jackets that I'm seeing everywhere right now. Those were kind of the 3 silhouettes, I guess, of jackets that were really speaking to me. Now, some patterns come to my brain, things that I have in my stash already, typically. But when it came to the chore jacket, I was kind of thinking, I made the Pattern Emporium Downton jacket, and I think that would be a great option. I think an unlined jacket is best because then you can get a little peek of, I think this is going to be the right side. I'm going to claim that this is the right side, so this would be the wrong side. But then you get a peek of the inside of the jacket when it's unlined. Okay, so let's talk about patterns first, and then I'll go kind of my thinking on what I'm leaning towards and why. So yeah, the Downton jacket, the seamwork jacket that Jenny made, can't remember the name off the top of my head. There's a picture of it right here. I'll pop the name here. That one I thought was a really interesting one. Also unlined, would be a lot of fun to make. Those were kind of the two primary chore style jacket. Oh, or the Closet Core Patterns Sienna Maker Jacket. Now I would make that one, I think it's UC, the cropped version, a little bit more simple. Like I don't want the pocket on the sleeve. I want to leave the sleeve very streamlined because again, I'm working with a lot of pattern here and I don't want a lot of pockets. I do want some pockets though. That is an important thing to note. I do want pockets. I just not necessarily a lot of pockets that most of the chore jackets have. All right, so that was kind of option one. Option two was doing a bomber jacket. Again, I think I would like to go unlined just so you could kind of get a glimpse of things on the inside when I take it off. It's just kind of fun. For this one, I was thinking that the Cashmerette Kimball jacket, or Kimball bomber, that was their very first pattern they did for their club, would be a perfect option for a bomber jacket. I've also made the Itch to Stitch Causeway. It is lined though, and I kind of feel like I don't want a lined jacket in this sense, although I could change my mind. And I'll explain that here in a second as well. I just want to really get the effect of both sides of the fabric in some way, shape, or form. The third kind of category that I was thinking about was a cropped trench coat. And I've seen these everywhere, and I just think that they're really cool and classic. Initially, I was thinking, okay, the Itch to Stitch Akari, it is not a cropped jacket, but I could make it cropped. It just depends on where I cut it. Although I would have to play around with the welt pockets and the placement of those because if I crop it, those are going to have to come up. So maybe it's best if I find a pattern that is a cropped trench jacket. The Akari is lined, and I would be okay with that in this instance because I think you could play around with the lapel of that being, so the facing that comes out in the lapel would be fun to do in the opposite fabric. I don't want things to get too busy. I thought, you know, you could do something that is reversible, and I'm sure someone is going to suggest that. However, I really want, I hate not having pockets in my jackets. I really want pockets in my jackets. So on that vein, I don't want it to be reversible because that you're gonna see the pocket on the other side. I mean, there's ways you can layer a patch pocket on top of the other one so that you can't tell, but I don't think I have an interest in making it reversible. I think I'm fine with maybe just being a hint of the other side. So whether that maybe is the welt pocket I do in the opposite side of the fabric, or maybe it's a patch pocket I do in the opposite side of the fabric, or again, the lapels that come out in the opposite side, or a collar or a cuff in the opposite fabric. That is kind of how I'm thinking I'm going to bring the other side just to give it some fun and dimension and something different without getting too busy because I want this to be classic still, something that I really gravitate toward. So what do you think? What are you most drawn toward? The chore jacket, a bomber, or a cropped trench? And is there a pattern that I have not mentioned that you think might be good? And it can be one that I don't own yet. You guys are great at giving suggestions. So leave those down below. Again, my YouTube membership is going to be the ones that vote on these. So if you would like to join us over on YouTube, please do. I will leave a link down to that below. We have a lot of fun in the membership. But yeah, the rest of this month, I'm gonna be making a muslin of whatever jacket I decide to do. If it's not one that if it's one I've made before, we'll talk a little bit about that. But if it's something I've not made before, I'm gonna be making a muslin and we're gonna be talking about fit and how to go about treating our precious fabric so that we don't end up with a fail. That's the idea. We want something that we get to wear, not something that ends up in the back of the closet that never gets worn. All right, guys, that is all I have for today. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Get some sewing in this weekend, and until next time, happy sewing. Bye.